Got Your Eers On is brought to you by Tactical Legion 9.
All right, everybody, hello and welcome to this week's episode of Got Your Eers On. I'm Guido, along with Scoot and Johnson.
March sadness? Question mark.
Man, it was sad March for WVU. I mean, I guess, guys, I have to admit I was wrong. I said this was going to be a Sweet 16 team. They were not a Sweet 16 team. They did at least make the NCAA tournament. I can look at positives, but WVU loses in the first round to the TWERPS, 67-65 Johnson, in what can only be called a very confusing game for WVU.
Yeah, I don't know how you have Guido. Like if you didn't watch this game and you asked someone, hey, how'd the Mountaineers do? And they started the conversation by saying they had a run of 14-0 and then a second run later of 16-0, you would be like, what would you would be like, oh, we clearly won this game going away. No, you lost on a final possession miss by 2 points. It was a weird game. It felt like it felt very on brand for this team. I think, Scoot, this is a team that lost 15 games. So it feels very on brand to have a game in the grasp to a Maryland team that is beatable, that I think at one point you have a 13-point lead in the first half. It looks like you're rolling. But ultimately you can't hang on and you lose. It sort of feels very on brand for this team this year.
It does. And I'm going to be honest, Johnson and Guido.
We like it when you are.
It's kind of unrelated to what you just said, so you're going to be mad. But when you said in the grasp, it reminded me of the old saying, one in the hand is better than two in the bush.
What is that?
I don't know.
I guess it means,
is that what that saying is?
I don't know. That's a weird turn of phrase.
So if we had the game in hand, is that better than having two in the bush?
I guess.
I suppose.
Yeah.
I mean,
I guess.
Are we just talking like regular shrubbery here?
I mean,
what do you have in mind? Like
arborvitae?
Arborvitae, yeah. Right? Are we just? Is this a
juniper?
Hedge? Yeah.
Welcome to Got Your Green Thumbs On.
Scooty, if I had told you, I think my comment on this is, if you had told me, hey guys, Kedrian Johnson had an amazing game, he scored 27 points, I'd have been like, yeah.
You know what?
How many did Eric Stevenson have?
I'll say this. You say that, I'm going to say, well, then we probably lost.
Yeah, because how many times have we said that, though, this season? It feels like, I mean, no slight to Kedrian, because, look, he's practically the reason we were even in this game late, especially. He had a pretty awesome 4-point play at one point, just kind of willing us through the second half. But how weird is it that, Scoot, we have talked about that almost every time you look at a box score.
That he has a bunch of points, we lose.
And you see that he has the lion's share of points. It's usually not that usually means the game didn't go the way you would have hoped, right?
Right. I don't know.
That's a weird thing.
I don't want to sound like I'm anti-Kedrian Johnson, but I'm not. I don't know.
I think that, you look at it and you saw, Eric struggled. He was 4 for 17 in the game. So he struggled. Jimmy Bell, he didn't even take a shot, didn't even got a handful of rebounds, and then fouled out with 6 minutes left to go in the game, 8 minutes left to go in the game. And then Emmett Matthews, in his last game in a Mountaineer uniform, came back to graduate and to walk on senior day as a Mountaineer. Love that. But he, again, just struggled. This was one of those games. I don't know what you guys saw. I saw Emmett Matthews not wanting the ball. And we were back to one of those games where it's like every time the ball came to him, he kicked it out. I think Huggins started getting frustrated. He pulled Emmett out a lot. Emmett only ends up playing 23 minutes, and Joe Toussaint gets in for 26. Trey plays the whole 40 minutes of the game, but he goes 5 for 11 with 13 points, which is serviceable, but you need Eric Stevenson to produce. You needed somebody else to produce in the game, Johnson.
Yeah, I feel like the physicality that Maryland sort of forced on the game. I thought, Emmett was a perfect example. He took a shot to the jaw, came out of the game, and then was never quite right the whole rest of the game, to Guido's point. He just never felt assertive. He wasn't really playing his game. And I think the whole bulldozer screens and stuff, I think they were keying on Eric Stevenson. I mean, credit to them. I mean, they sort of decided to beat us to the punch and get physical, when usually that's our brand of ball. But I thought it was weird how in a season when you're constantly it'd be nice if the refs would kind of let the game play a little bit. In this game, I thought, wow, the refs are just sort of ignoring body blows here, I don't know. It felt almost the other way.
I don't know. I guess my thought was, watching it play out, my thought is if Emmett is hurt, then let's not keep trying to play a guy that's hurt. Let's find somebody else that can maybe score. Maybe a Seth Wilson. God forbid we put a guy in that can hit outside shots.
That can shoot the ball.
Especially at the end of the game when we're running out Pat Sumnick and 4 other guards, basically. Why are we running Pat Sumnick out there? Why are we not running Seth? We're down.
Right.
Run a guy that can score. No offense to Pat Sumnick, but I don't know that I've ever seen the guy score.
Well, I think Jimmy Bell's 11 minutes, 5 fouls really screwed up the 5 position. I mean, that's an easy one to pick on, but I think it just sort of threw that part of the game kind of off kilter, and that seemed to spread across the other substitutions. I think you normally want to go Tonka and Okonkwo like we've seen most games, but like you said earlier, Tonka just sort of gets 5 quick fouls, doesn't score, out of the game. Now you've got to shuffle Sumnick in.
Can I be honest?
Please.
Okay. The center position for WVU, outside of getting an offensive rebound, offensively has been non-existent all season long. Jimmy Bell may be a great guy. He's a giant of a man. He's not a starter, I don't think. He's not a guy that I think on other teams plays as much as he does. But maybe the same thing. He's maybe a guy that comes off the bench, gives you a couple of good minutes. We don't have a Devin Williams, Culver,
Ebanks,
Oscar. Yeah. We don't have anybody that we don't have a Jamie Smalligan. We don't have a
great name, by the way. I love it.
Or a Rob Summers. We don't have an offensive-minded guy that can play this 5 spot.
There's no Brent Solheim coming up out there.
You almost have to go with Tonka in the scope of this roster. You don't have a choice.
I get that, yes. I mean, they had no choice, so that's where I question the roster composition a little bit. Okay, he's a Big East type guy, Tonka is, but he's not – he's the guy that you bring in to kind of beat down on the other guys, but all the while we've got somebody else that's going to score in the post.
Well, you're saying maybe just go small then.
Play Pat Sumnick. What are you doing?
Right.
Why bother?
But Guido, if that runner that Kedrian tosses up at the end, if that runner that just bounces off the rim, if it goes down, once again, I feel like after a loss, I'm so in the Marianas Trench, and after a win, I'm standing on the top of Mount Everest, and I try to not do that to myself. I think in this game, I think that's the frustration part, is you were so close. Like I said, 13-point lead in the first half. This felt so winnable. I think the thud, I think that's why it's so disappointing, is you just watched it man, we easily could have advanced, and there we are, bowing out early.
I think this was absolutely a winnable game, down to the last second, right? Throwing in not a shot that was, I mean, that last shot was a makeable shot. Not that it was rushed, and I get like you're talking about shooting with 2 seconds on the clock or whatever, but like here's the thing, like this team, and we said it all season long, like there were better pieces and parts on this team than there were last year's team. And it was a better put together team. We felt like we got a handle on the transfer portalness of what is now, NCAA Division I basketball. The question here is, what happens next, right? The question is now, you lose a bunch of guys. There's a lot of guys not coming back. There's Jamil King has now entered the transfer portal. Not that is anything we know anything about, because it's not like he played a lot. So,
58 minutes. He did play 58 minutes.
Yeah, I think he played 58 minutes across his 2 seasons, I think.
2 seasons. Yeah, 2 seasons he was. And then I think the biggest, I guess elephant in the room, guys, that we should talk about is, so post game, Huggins does his normal thing, but somebody asks a question, kind of a pointed question about, coaching or staying or going, and coaching, and Huggins says that some say I should stay, others think I should go, and let some young kid come in and screw it up. And then later this week, Wren Baker comes out and says he plans to meet with Huggins and talk about his coaching future. I don't think there's any situation where Wren Baker is telling Huggins what to do. I think Wren Baker's talking about, hey, what was that comment about, coach? But did you guys get any sense from, like, is Hugs gonna hang it up?
I don't think so. I think it's gonna. He'll do whatever Guy Gordon Gee tells him to do. Wren Baker, that is. I don't. It kind of had, again. This is funny, I guess, but to me, it had a little bit of Hugs' response had a little bit of that snarky, grumpy old man, Jim Boeheim. I retired last week, but you didn't pay attention when I retired. Like,
right, it's right.
That's on you guys. I retired.
Right.
So are you saying you retired? I didn't say that, but hey, Bob. Well, I get you're a little miffed that somebody might be trying to push you out the door, but let's be honest. Have we come close to reaching our goals here lately? If your goal is to get back to the Final Four, are we close to that? Are we going to be close to that next year? Are you planning to stick around until you're Lou Carnesecca's age at 98 and hopes to continue to coach?
By the way, what are we doing? Quick aside, Scoot, did you see that clip of Lou Carnesecca being interviewed about Rick Pitino moving to St. John's? And he's sharp.
Oh, he's super sharp.
He's super sharp. He's got like 8 microphones in his face.
He's like, yeah, we wanted him here. He's going to do a great job.
Yeah, he's answering all the questions. I was sitting there thinking, like, I can only hope to be that with it when and Scoot, you're gonna appreciate this.
Years
yeah,
old.
98. And Scoot, I know you noticed this. Nicely parted hair, swept to the side. That's what Scoot noticed. I know he did.
Yes. Oh yeah.
He's
got a full head of hair. Yeah.
Dude's 98. He looks great. But Scoot, don't you think this thing with Hugs? Don't you? To me, I gave him. I read this tweet with like a sideways sideways look at my phone, because some young kid, come on, a long time ago, Hugs was some young kid getting a start, so like I know what he means. Like, he's like, hey, they'll just say, hey, promote whatever dummy to come in and take my place. But it did, you're right, it rung like old man yells at clouds type of thing,
just stop. We have to be realistic, right? Are we going to continue to bury this university? Is that what we're going to do? Is that what we're all about?
Is that what you think is happening?
Is that what you think is happening?
I'd like to introduce a new segment we're calling Ear Me Out. Brought to you by our friends at Vortec Knives. Listen, ear me out.
Can you say that? Can you say that with a British accent?
Yeah, because it's either Australian or like a Cockney.
Ear me out, mates.
There you go.
Is is it Gordon Gee's mission to just see if he can churn all sporting teams, let me restate that. Is it his mission to churn all sports programs within this university to a grinding halt? Right? Now, granted, there are some that are still doing fine. Rifle. Okay, nobody really. When was the last time you watched a rifle match? Don't even know where you would watch a rifle match. We're very proud of our rifle team, yet I don't know that anyone's ever seen a rifle.
Well, 60,000 people don't show up to watch the small bore, I think is what you're saying.
Girls soccer. Okay, we're okay with girls soccer.
We're
I will
better
say
than okay. That's like
Coach Izzo Brown did not let me sit next to her on an airplane here recently.
Oh, that's why you're salty about
I am a little miffed about that. There was an open seat there, Coach Brown. Anyway,
she gave you the
she nutmegged me.
She gave you
the cold shoulder. High hard one.
She gave you the Forrest Gump treatment.
Oh yes. I didn't know where you're going. I was trying to help you.
That's what she said. Seats taken. Can't sit here.
I'm sorry. You got me thrown off here with the Forrest Gump talk because I watched an interview recently of Tom Hanks and he talked about where he came up with the Forrest Gump. Yeah, it was a 7-year-old kid. The kid that played Forrest as a kid. That's how that kid talked.
For real?
He just decided, so that's how he decided to come up.
This is all getting cut out.
All right. Now, where were you going?
Okay.
Igor,
Hear me out. He's grinding each team to a halt. Hey, women's basketball. Listen, here's what we're going to do. We're going to kind of tick off the winningest coach in the program's history. He's going to step away, retire, quote unquote. We're going to hire somebody, and that person's going to last a year. And then this guy's going to all of a sudden come back. Men's football. I'm rattled. I'm frantic right now.
Noted women's football enthusiast.
Football?
Yes.
Listen, we're going to let this Neil Brown, great guy, awesome cannonballs. He's going to run our football team. We're going to have him be kind of smug and insult the fan base for the next 5 years. And so that nobody really wants to watch. And we're going to do that with our football program.
Guido, the guy takes a few photos one time at a pool party with the team, and Scoot never lets him live the cannonballs down.
I'll never let that down.
So Scooty, though, I'm just asking. Are you saying that Huggins staying in the basketball program is continuing to set the program back? Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is, tell me how it's progressing the program. How? What are we doing to bring in the potential? What are we doing to potentially get to a Final Four? What are we doing to potentially win a national championship? Are we coaching and recruiting in a way that will allow us to be a ranked team year in and year out? Are we keeping up with the other teams in our conference? Are we keeping up with the other teams in the country?
Scoot has obviously been scrolling Mountaineer Twitter because when this game with Maryland went final, it lit up. Would you agree it lit up like a Christmas tree with the what's Hugs done for me lately? Is he earning his salary?
Listen, I don't care about the salary. Listen, he has to get paid what everybody else is getting paid. That's how you get coaches, right? And he's earned it. He's obviously been around for a long time. He's a Hall of Fame coach. He should get paid a lot of money. However, I'm not as upset about what he gets paid versus what he's doing. I'm more upset about, okay, what are we doing? Like, he's 69 or 70 years old. Are we talking a 5-year plan? Are we talking, is he going to turn this thing into a Final Four team in the next year or two? Because not to be morbid, but how long is he going to coach? Are we expecting him to make it to 85?
No, that's practical. And I think that actually answers Guido's question too. I think the read I got from this is that very thing. Not so much like a sit down and talk about performance thing. I think Guido, to answer your question, I took kind of where Scoot's going. At face value, I took the comment from the AD as it's time to start talking maybe about the future, transitions. How do we move past, whatever the horizon is here? What's the plan for that? That's the way I read the comment.
Let's talk about quality of life, right? So coaching college basketball is a grind. It's a 12-month a year.
In a normal situation, it's a grind.
Yes.
In our situation, it's absurd, right? It's like you earn more sky miles than a Delta Airlines pilot.
Right. But my point is, does Wren Baker say to Bob Huggins, like, listen, we want to give you time with your family. We want you to be able to enjoy, I don't know if he's got grandchildren. I don't know if his daughters have children or married or anything, but we want to give you some time with your family, some like stress-free time. You want to go fishing, you want to go hunting, you want to go down to the Caribbean. We want to be able to give you some of that time to enjoy it. Like, he's got to be miserable most of the time, I would think. Like, losing is not fun.
So, yeah, but here's this is where I get mad. Like, so everybody's, and like Twitter made me kind of mad about it. I get
Twitter
we lost
was lathered up.
It was lathered up. And I get that we lost in the first round and we thought we could run deeper. And I understand that, we didn't have, I don't know, it wasn't a bad season. It was just a very rough season. But let's just talk about West Virginia sports fans. Let's talk about West Virginia basketball fans specifically. They talk about the good old days of Gail Catlett. They talk about the great days of playing in the Big East in the 90s. Gail Catlett coached at WVU for 24 years, right? 24 years. In those 24 years, how many times did Gail Catlett get us into the NCAA tournament? How many times, Scoot?
24, I'm going to say 8.
Johnson?
Yeah, I was going to say 6 or 7.
Scooty nailed it. It's 8 times. In 24 years, Gail Catlett got us in 24 times. Huggins has coached for the team for 15 years. How many times in those 15 years have we been in the NCAA tournament under Bob Huggins?
Ooh, I'm going to say, he said 15 years he's been doing it. I'm going to say
at WVU.
11 or 12.
Yeah, I was going to say 12. 11. Okay.
11, right? So
okay,
you're talking. So you're complaining about a guy. And I mean, not just you, Scoop, but like the crazies on Twitters, right? You're complaining about a guy who year in and year out gets our program in a tough conference into the tournament year in and year out. We miss it here, we miss it there. I get it. 11 out of 15 years.
But it's the same reason why guys like. I don't know, Joe Girardi or Don Mattingly or some of these guys that have been very successful coaches or managers in other sports. That's why they get fired, right? Because you've built up our expectation. Okay, now getting there is not enough. We've got to get past the first weekend. Well, do you do that consistently enough? I don't know that we do. Then you want to get more and more and more, right? So just getting there is, like, if you look at the other Hall of Fame coaches, if they're kind of teetering back and forth, are they people calling for their heads as well? Probably.
I think
people want Calipari gone.
I think the Bob Huggins conversation is a tough one because the expectations you have and have developed are largely, in part, because of Bob Huggins. So it's hard to be. I think people start to like spew vitriol toward the performance. So take this season as an example. And I think they lose sight of the whole reason you feel like there's underperformance or you're unhappy is because of expectations from prior seasons that Bob Huggins put in place. So right. I think that's what makes this conversation tough. I think what I would boil it down to is more, people have talked about the last 5 years, for example. What do you feel about the last 5 years? Even that, I think, is a thorny situation because had that tournament happened the COVID year, that team is likely like a 2 seed in the tournament. Maybe, what I mean? That
maybe a 4, Maybe a 4
that
seed.
team
but
just
yeah,
was
they were
primed to do some exciting stuff. That's probably the shame of it.
Right.
Is that team never got to really show what it could do in the tournament. I think the conversation now starts to become, Scoot, you were heading there, and I tend to agree. Like, does the current, and I still think I still think that the coaches around Hugs too, the staff. Like I like to push it out to include the staff as well, because I think, Scoot, you're on the right track. Like, it's a grind. The Big 12 is a buzzsaw. You have to have a lot of fire and energy to be in the conference to begin with. If you're a West Virginia, and I think, as an aside, and I've said this a couple shows now, I look at like Central Florida and even Cincinnati, and I just sort of give them the bless your heart treatment, because they have no idea what they've signed up for. For one thing, on the basketball side, to have these road trips that we have to swing, you have to not only recruit capable dudes. So, Jerome Tang was talking about, we had more dudes than Kentucky this week. You have to not only recruit dudes, you have to recruit dudes that are willing to do this stuff week in and week out through, the grind of a Big 12 season. To me, that's an especially large challenge for us. It's not only about getting competent players, it's about convincing guys to join you on this type of game rotation, travel schedule. I mean, that's the crazy challenge, I think, for WVU basketball.
If you look at, I'm gonna rattle off some coaches right now that are in the Sweet 16. Okay. I want you to tell me if our coaching staff seems to match, exceed, or I guess underwhelm the energy level of this coach and this staff. Okay. You ready?
All right.
I'll start off with Jerome Tang. Okay. Does he appear to have more juice?
He and
Coach
his
Huggins?
staff.
Yes. More juice?
More juice.
Guido?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, listen. Okay. Danny Hurley, UConn coach. More juice?
Yeah, probably.
Guido?
I mean, maybe, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Eric Musselman.
That's a softball. He just tore his shirt off and stood on a scorer's table. Yeah,
what would you do?
So there's
you
fire
think Huggins
there.
is going to take his shirt off and swing it around like a helicopter?
People
like he's
would
Petey
love
Pablo?
that. No, but if he
no
did,
Petey Pablo?
if he did that, people would go nuts. I mean, it'd be awesome.
He is not. Listen, people would go nuts. Women would hold their children and their purses tighter. Like, I don't know. Like, I can't even imagine. Listen, I don't want to imagine what Coach Huggins looks like with a shirt
But
off.
this is the thing about the tournament, though, and Guido will agree with me. FAU, come on, give me a break. Of course, Hugs and Stat. Like, come on. Who else is weirdly Princeton? Those guys, they're like
Would you say
a
that-
bunch
how
of
about Izzo?
investment
Does
bankers and
Izzo seem to have more
CPAs. They're
energy?
just excited to be there. Like the tournament's weird. Like that's the other thing about this whole tournament thing.
The best was when Princeton won that last game. They had video of the student.
Yeah, and it was like
the student
crickets chirping.
empty.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody. Right.
Listen,
So
I think we're at a big time crossroads.
I think here's the thing is I just Huggins. I get it. Huggins was that guy 15 years ago when he came to us. He definitely had more juice. There was definitely more energy, and you saw it in that string of 5-6 years, Johnson, where we were like, Sweet 16, round of 34,
Yeah,
Final
like we're-
Four,
like,
Elite
come
Eight.
on.
I get it, Scoot. But
So
in
we're
the
supposed
same
to just
sense,
be okay with getting there?
No, I don't think that at
No.
all. And I don't criticize people for having the expectations, but I think it's also it's funny how in football and basketball, the conversation is so flipped, isn't it? In basketball, I think you just run the risk of right now, Scoot, there's part of me, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but there's so, you talking about the fire that's needed and the happiness and quality of life. And I'm talking on about the grind because you're geographically in this weird position in this conference. to me, there's a part of me, I don't know what percentage I would put on it, like 20, 25% of the success that we have is because the cachet, regardless of the fire at his age, the cachet of Bob Huggins asking you, Hall of Fame coach, to come play for him in Morgantown is what gets some of these dudes to consider and come to Morgantown, where otherwise they would look at where you're located, where you have to travel to, how weird your schedule is through the Southwest, and just say, no, I'd rather, I have other offers. It's more comfortable. I'm going to go to something more regional or whatever. That's the part of that really makes me nervous, that when Huggs is no longer there, do you have enough gravitational pull without his, being who he is to get guys to Morgantown?
And Scoot, I will say on the backs of that too, that I think the answer is, and maybe the program's already moving in this direction. I think the answer is you need Huggins, you need the figurehead, you need the Hall of Famer that you want these guys to come play for, but you also need to have the youth and the juice in the assistant coaching staff, right? And I think Josh Eilert and I think DeMar Johnson, help that. And maybe it's time for Ronnie Everhart to take a break and have a sit back.
So maybe it's a mix, Scoot. Maybe it's a happy medium of I don't think we disagree with you, but it's because the other thing too, I think people would probably counteract my argument by saying, look, Huggs has put top-notch facilities in place. You're filling the Coliseum with 12,000 people, even when you're not hitting on all cylinders. The support, the facilities, the money seems to be there. A new coach with a lot of fire and competency could probably pick up and run. Part of me hesitates that it becomes even harder to compete in a weird conference setup.
So do we come up with some sort of Wren Baker say, listen, I want you to, either somebody on your staff or take a look, talk to some of your contacts. Is there somebody that you would like to see as your successor?
I don't necessarily think that's the answer either. I think the answer is that for the bench coaches, I think that you maybe say, hey, I think Ron's doing great, and he can really, go out there and he can, get you guys prepared for what team you have to face and whatever. And let's give him a new title. Let's call him director of, scouting. And his job is to scout out the teams. But you bring an Alex Ruoff in, a younger guy, to work with some of these younger guys. I think that's where I'm at with the program. And I think Huggins has got to get guys around him that are amped up, that can get the players amped up, that he will let do stuff. That's I think the bigger problem, Johnson, is that Huggins, when Larry Harrison left and Huggins was cranky as can be, he said, that's it. Nobody else can handle it. I'm going to do it all. I'm doing the rotations. I'm telling who I'm doing everything. And I think that's where the problem was. So Huggins has got to find one of those guys that he trusts.
And I think, Scoot, you're almost self-reporting what Guido kind of just said by unceremoniously parting with your longtime assistant and replacing him immediately with a younger guy that you say can recruit and is immediately going to try to have an impact on your DC, Maryland, Virginia recruiting. I think you're almost self-reporting hey, we know we have some staff deficiencies. We're trying. I think Alex Ruoff is probably some of that as well. I think he could do more in that department if he's going to. So if he sits down with Wren Baker, says there's some kind of horizon, I'm on board for the next X years, then I guess where I'm at is I feel like he could do more in those decisions and bring in, more on the staff side to help him out, to kind of account for some of that stuff.
Young GAs. I don't know. I just think I hear where you're coming from, and I hear the crazy Twitter people, but I don't know how you can sit there and say it's time to get rid of him.
Well, I don't know. What's funny to me is I don't know if it's 360 or 180. I don't know how many degrees Guido has turned. But Guido, for the long time, if you look at this season, he was anti-basketball team. I don't know about this team. It seems like it's a repeat of last year. Same, we got a bunch of transfers. Guido was off the train early. And I was
off the train, but
I was very.
I called it though. I called what we were going to do in the conference. I mean, I didn't get my Sweet 16 that I'd said, but I don't. Scoot. I don't know what you
Listen,
want. You're not going to lose Huggins.
I'm angry. I'm mad.
Why are you mad though? What would have made you not mad?
Well, for one, getting
would you
past
rather
the
played
first
in the
round.
NIT and
get
won the
past
championship?
First round would be nice.
But I think
Two.
I'm going to let you keep. I'm pulling like a Taylor Swift on you. I'm going to let you continue. But I would just say I think this anger after the Maryland game by everyone is more reflective of how loyal and hard rooting we are as fans than where we actually thought this team could go. I don't think any of us really thought they were going to make even Guido is hopeful of a Sweet 16, but I don't think anyone would have said.
It's 100% a carryover from football because we're sick and tired
Neil
of.
Brown
oh
with
my
you. I'm
gosh.
with you. I blame
We are
Neil
sick
Brown.
and
It's Neil
tired
Brown's fault.
of this, right? Football is a dumpster fire, so you're angry about that. Then you get to basketball, the one glimmering hope you might have of doing something fun and great, and you get to like, hey, you're going to do amazing in the preseason. You're going to beat ACC division leader or whatever they were, conference leader, by 25. You're going to beat
Florida
Mount
by 20.
Jitumbo from Florida.
Right.
You're going to compete neck and neck. You're going to lose by 12, but compete with Purdue, who is like amazing for most of the year.
You're going to give Xavier all they want at Xavier.
Yeah, you're going to, and then you're going to straight up poop in your pants come conference time
to
for
the tune
6
of,
or 8 games.
6 games, right?
Yeah.
So then you're like, oh my good, what is going on? Then we're going to somehow sneak in the back door of this NCAA tournament with a 7-11 record. People are like national media is like, what the heck is going on? How in the world did this team get in there? It's got to be Bob Huggins. He must have some sort of crazy influence. People must feel bad for him. I don't know what it is, but this team gets in there. So not only do we get in there, but hey, guess what? We're going to have you lose by 2 to one of your rival schools in a game where you, for some reason, decide to run Pat Sumnick and 4 guards out there when you're down by 2 and you've got one of the best three-point shooters on your team sitting on the bench, who, by the way, is the second leading scorer at St. Vincent St. Mary's history. Behind who? LeBron James. But no, we're going to sit back and just be okay with Bob Huggins and the crew for another 5 more years of fixing it. What is fixing it? Is this fixing it? Is it not fixing it? I think fixing it would be get to a Final Four, get to a national championship. Not, hey, we thought we'd sneak us into the back door of the NCAA tournament. Look at that. And we weren't an 11 seed. We were a 9 seed. Whoopity-doo. We didn't have to play the play-in game. Listen, we're tired of it. And baseball is great, but it's hard to watch. That's the bottom line. It is hard to keep up with college baseball because it is hard to watch. They play at weird times. The weather is cold. Nobody wants to go sit in the cold and watch a game like this. It's too cold, and ESPN Plus sucks. So that's the problem we have right now. Soccer's good too, but it's never on TV, and if it is, it's weird. So we're not doing it.
Rifle.
And rifle's good. But who's ever seen you might listen, if you've seen a rifle match, you probably have held on to Watson. The IBM Watson. You've had your hands on Watson if you've watched a rifle match, because that's one and the same.
Here's the other problem. If I did watch a rifle match, I probably wouldn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how they score. Like, how does that work? He looks like he got a bullseye. That looked close. Like, but I like it all, Scoot, and I don't disagree with you. You're 100% right. The sports, the WVU is
and it's
good
Gordon
at right
Gee's
now.
fault. He's grinding us to a halt. He is beating down the will of the good people of West Virginia so that we are happy when we do something mediocre. That's what they're doing. They're trying to beat us into being happy being mediocre. Why? Why can't we be good and be happy being good? Why do we have to be like, well, the football team won maybe 6 games. Woohoo. Like, nobody cares about going and playing Army in a bowl game. Nobody cares about that.
That's our best win, by the we're not going to talk about that, but I always think
we're going to bring out a mannequin to play in the second half, and he's going to win the game. Like, nobody cares. Like, this man has won 2 games in a row at max. When has he ever been ranked? No. Like, it's bad. And we're going to be excited. Hey, you know what? This year the team might actually beat Duquesne in one of those games in the beginning of the year. And we might squeak out another conference win so that we can end up 2-6 to start the season. Nobody wants that. It's not good enough.
Did we just do like a Kevin Bacon game of where we worked like everything wrong with the university is only 3 steps away from Neil Brown or something like that?
It is. I love that concept. Like, I love the idea that, like, honest to God, like, if WVU, let's for argument's sake, just play argument. I'm just going to play devil's advocate here on the other side. Let's say West Virginia went 10-2 in football and played, like, in maybe not a BCS bowl, but like a nice bowl game. Scoot's probably not as angry about losing in the first round of the tournament. He's probably not as cranky about it. I think I 100%.
He has some like reserve happiness from football that he can spread on to basketball season. He can't do that right now. He has
right. There's no right, and there's no helping out anything else when everything is bad. Listen, Scoot. As crazy as I think you might be sometimes, I don't think you're that far off. I really don't. I think that you're right, and it is unfortunate because everybody's like, well, and we've talked about it on the show before, guys. I mean, WVU baseball right now is ranked in the top 25. They just they went on a tear a couple of weeks ago where they beat what was it? Appalachian State 18-1, and then played them the next day and beat them 18-5, and then went the next day and played UNC Greensboro and beat them 28-2. But you're not wrong, Scooty. Unfortunately, like all those games were at like 3:30 in the afternoon when we were all working on like ESPN Plus, and you have to go through 17 other games to find it. So like I hear what you're saying about all of that.
I've got another complaint.
I don't see this getting fixed on the horizon, Scooty. I don't see this changing.
Listen, there's also some sort of collusion with Guy and the restaurants in Morgantown. We went to a football game on a Saturday, and we had to go all the way to Saberton to eat food because everything was either closed or busy or something. Black Bear Burrito, I don't even know if it exists anymore where it used to exist. It ticks me off.
You okay?
Who wants to go to Saberton? Who?
Scoot, everyone knows you get all your authentic Mexican cuisine in Saberton. I mean, that's why we went there.
There's no Qdoba.
Everyone knows that.
Though, so
everyone knows.
It was a Saturday. We had to go to Saberton for food.
I don't even know where to go now. I don't even know where to go with this show now. Like it's just been totally derailed by.
We had to go to Saberton.
Are you still going to do the podcast with us? Are you announcing your retirement?
Listen, fellas, don't listen. Don't worry.
Everyone in Saberton just hit stop on the podcast.
Don't
They're just
worry.
Like, you know what?
I'll fix it. Give me a year. I'll fix it. I'll fix it.
You're not gonna find some other young guy to come in and screw it up for us?
No.
Can we look over the last 5 seasons of you being on the podcast and see what you brought to the
you
show?
Can do that. You can.
I already know what you're
making,
and we're getting what we pay for. By the way, I already know what you make for this podcast. So
I'm an open book. You can look at my books.
Well, I will hate to say it. In the 5 years that we've been doing this podcast, guys, the program has not been great.
Are we to blame? Are you trying to say we are to blame?
I mean, are we? I feel like our Twitter followers are going to start laying into us that we're the jinx.
Like if we stopped podcasting and they immediately like Wren Baker made a move to hire a new football coach, you'd be like, oh my gosh, it was us the whole time. It was us the whole time.
That would be crazy. I don't want to even think that way.
I'm just saying. I don't know. I don't know what. Well, let me pull things back in. There'll be a lot to talk about this offseason. Obviously, a lot of guys are leaving, and this is this is the new world of Division I basketball. So I'm sure we'll have a lot of transfer offseason.
Maybe the guys that are leaving will open up a restaurant that's open on Saturdays.
I think we'll have a lot to talk about as the transfer portal world heats up here in the next 4 weeks for Division I basketball, and we see what's next. But let's talk about one other West Virginia basketball thing, but not on the men's side. West Virginia women's goes into the first round, also the round of 64 for the NCAA women's tournament, and loses their first round game. So no luck for WVU on either end. But on coaching on their side, a little bit different. Dawn Plitzowait, and I got it right because now she's leaving, Scooty, has decided to exit the team after 1 year to become the new coach at Minnesota.
This is just another goofy situation where things are not great, right? Listen, because here's the thing. If we're bringing Mike Carey back, which is what it sounds like people want, and maybe he wants.
It's what Mike Carey wants.
Right.
Yeah.
He's going to have to start all over from scratch because a lot of these kids are not his kids.
How do you feel about a guy going on local television and saying, I want to come back and I could come back and Hugs wants me back?
Right. He went on WBOY and was like, yeah, I want to come back.
That's a weird thing, right, Guido?
What?
That's a weird.
That is a very weird thing.
Listen, I like Mike Carey. I went to a coach's clinic, and he was one of the speakers at the coach's clinic, and he was quite good.
Did he let you sit next to him, or
no? I did not get to sit next to him. That must be a West Virginia coaching thing. They don't like me, but listen, if you retire, you step away. Should we just give the guy a green light? Hey, you know what? Okay, we got the guy that apparently didn't like you is gone, or that you didn't like is gone.
Well,
so
now
you should just
that's
be able to
the
come
thing,
back,
right? But now that's like the extra topping on this weird sandwich, right? It's like guy suddenly is no longer the coach. New coach comes in. New coach is suddenly not the coach anymore. And people have said if you talk to any of the players, they're not surprised she left. I thought that was interesting. You read a lot of that on Twitter, like little side comments from players, like no one's shocked about that. The big thing here that Guido was getting to is she was not on the bus, apparently, on the ride back to Morgantown. Players started to be tipped off about this move on Twitter on the ride back to Morgantown. Like, can you handle this any worse? I would ask. I would submit no. You could not handle that any worse. Now, she says, look, we're making this move because it puts me closer to home and family, and obviously everyone respects that. Look, no question. Everybody respects that. But there's a better way to handle this. And oh, by the way, that may be true, but it also doesn't hurt when Minnesota reportedly doubles your salary in the meantime.
This is where, in this situation, while I know, and you know, women's basketball, not as big as men's basketball. We don't follow. I mean, I'll be the first to admit, I don't follow it as much as I follow the men's team. But this is the first situation where Wren Baker's been kind of put under pressure. Not sure it was handled great, Johnson. Not sure it was, like you said, like this is another thing that has made me now nervous at Wren Baker, and we'll see what happens. Like, and now I feel like if he hires Mike Carey back, that's not great. That doesn't make me and that doesn't instill confidence in Wren Baker's actions as an athletic director at a Power 5 Division I,
Well, let's
school.
go around really quick on that, because I think, at least right off the bat, if you watch Wren Baker, he actually, to me, Scoot, feels like a pretty cool customer right now. He pretty much got in front of people and said, look, I was a little surprised at this Dawn Plitzowait thing, but we've already started a nationwide search, because he was also getting heat like, hey, right down the road, you've got Kim Stevens at Glenville State. And he wasn't dismissive of that, but he said, look, we've got a big wide, we're casting a wide net. We're going to have a wide search for this. At the moment, Guido, I like where Wren Baker's at. I think he ended his statements by saying, look, someone's going to be really happy and really lucky to be the women's coach at WVU. I don't feel like he immediately is like, oh yeah, we're leaning toward Mike Carey. I don't feel that.
Well, I think locally he's catching a little bit of flack because Kim Stevens is now the new head coach of Marshall women's basketball.
Right.
And I think that was already in the works probably before this even
That's what it sounded like. Yeah, that's what it sounded like.
But I think people are ticked that she didn't get an opportunity before when Dawn Plitzelwaite came on. And I think they're even more ticked that they had another chance to get her. And they didn't even, I don't know if maybe they tried. I don't know. Maybe she was already like, well, I'm already committed to this other opportunity. But to a lot of people, it seems like we're just, we had an opportunity. Now, granted, I've also read on Twitter, like, would you be thrilled if WVU hired, let's say, Shepherd University's head coach as the new football head coach because they happen to win a lot of games at the Division II level? You're probably not going to be super thrilled about that. So I don't know why we're all gaga over a Division II basketball coach in Kim Stevens,
Virginia,
but that's
Scooty,
I know that's what it is. It's because there's this ridiculous loyalty to all things West Virginia. It's the reason why Shane Lyons was hired as the AD.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, honestly, in the state of West Virginia, if you said, hey, we've decided that we want to fill the role as the men's football coach, as Scoot says, the new men's football coach would be a pepperoni roll, the people of West Virginia would go crazy. They'd
John Corbett from Wheeling, from the guy from Northern Exposure. We entertained offering him the opportunity.
Chris Sarandon, the new head coach.
Brad Paisley as the offensive coordinator.
Yes. People of West Virginia think it's the best hire ever.
Man, this is
I might be
unique.
all right with that, right?
It might actually work for the football team. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens, and we'll see how Wren Baker handles his first big hire for WVU athletics. Guys, a couple other things we should talk about that I just want to touch on a few things. First of all, it was fun watching Fairlane Dickinson University out of New Jersey, which apparently has 23,000 students at their university. Make it deep, if you will, into the or at least upset Purdue in a very dramatic fashion. Crazy game, and they weren't even supposed to be there, Johnson. They weren't even supposed to play.
Yeah, outside the Ken Palm 300, Scoot. The one thing out of this whole Fairleigh Dickinson story, I think, that grabbed my attention the most, they don't have a band, right? So after they beat Purdue and they went into the Florida Atlantic game, I think Friday, Dayton, they're playing, I think, in the first four, right? So the Dayton band learned their fight song, played it for them while they were in attendance, and waved around plastic swords that they all went and bought at Party City because Fairleigh Dickinson is the Knights. They all went and bought plastic swords and waved them around to kind of give them that extra support. I thought that was amazing. I thought that was.
Do you think
great.
that put him over the edge?
I think
it must have put him over the top.
That's what pushed him forward.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Other interesting NCAA basketball things. Rick Pitino, who we all love, Rick Pitino has signed a 6-year deal to be the head coach at St. John's, and he comes out in the press conference and he's like, I think most of the players will not return next season, is what he says. And he looked crazy. I mean, honestly, Scoot, he looked like.
Well, you know what he kind of reminds me of
crazy.
now? He kind of reminds me of Al Pacino. A little bit. He's got a little bit of an Al Pacino, crazy eyes, kind of like.
Yep.
Hoo-ah. He's got a little bit of that. He's got a little bit of that. Hoo-ah. He's got that
you
Al
won't
Pacino.
return. Hoo-ah.
Yeah. He's got a little bit of that.
Yeah, definitely interesting there. Well, a couple other things I want to do before we wrap up the show. We're going to talk a lot about football. We're going to take a couple weeks off. We're going to come back and talk about the spring game that's coming up in April.
They're having
talk about they are a spring game. There is a spring game.
There's a big time competition between the quarterbacks.
That's what I've heard, Scoot.
4-year returning quarterback that, for whatever reason, cannot get. God forbid he gets 2 games to start in a row. Yeah, we'll big competition.
Neil Brown said in his press conference earlier this week that there will be a QB competition between Garrett Green and Nico.
He probably said, I didn't hear it, but he probably said there's going to be a QB competition between Nico and that other guy. Because I can't. Who's that other guy?
Who's that other guy?
Nico
And
and
that little kid I don't play ever.
that little guy, number 6, and Nico. I'm just saying that number 6 is cute. That's all. Just saying, real cute quarterback.
He set expectations. He said that the quarterback competition will be the entire spring, and there will not be a quarterback named after spring practices.
Of course not. We're not doing that.
Come on.
Because Garrett is gone. He's gone if you say, hey, by the way, Nico, who's going to be our starting quarterback, is going to be our starting quarterback.
Do you think he catches himself saying that? He goes, "Oh, I didn't mean that. What I meant to say was everything's competition."
Sorry, what's your name again, you little cutie? What we call a little cutie? I ain't talking about that orange.
I think the other interesting thing that came out of this week in the press conferences to kick off spring practices, guys, was that Leslie Jordan,
Also, Jordan Leslie.
sorry, Leslie Jordan died recently.
He's
as
that
an
cute
actor.
little fella. He was that little guy that
He
had
just
white hair.
passed
Yeah.
Scoots ruined me. For
At first, you were like Leslie Jordan. I was like, who the hell is Leslie Jordan? I don't know. We have a
he's the actor who just died. Who's on that
Yeah.
show with Mayim Bialik. Yeah. Jordan Leslie came out and talked about that we should have probably focused on fundamentals more last year.
I don't even know what to do with that, Scoot. Like,
Do they not know fundamentals?
right? I don't even know where to start with that. It's the
fundamentals.
weirdest
Guys,
quote.
let's start with a 3-point stance. Let's start there. Or was it even worse than that? Was it like, hey, Scoot,
Listen,
this is a football.
If I'm being honest, what he needed to start with was actually recruiting defensive players. Start there. Find you some players. We were running out 2 traffic cones and a freaking hot dog for defensive backs at one point last year. Like, what are we doing? Freaking giant hot dog, a TL hot dog, T&L, or Jans or somebody. They got a big
Is
gigantic
it
hot dog
Jans or
out there.
Jans, Guido?
Yans. It's not Yans. Like
Jans
nobody
is like a
says-
Norwegian
no,
hot dog. Scoot.
Jans.
yes,
Jans.
Jans.
Hey,
it's like a German hot dog.
Jans.
Hey, Jans. I like my Jans hot dogs.
But that's what we were running out there. Like, listen, I think, Guido, you could go to your local hardware store and find 3 guys to throw in the backfield, and they would be better than what we threw out there.
Can we go back to because I don't want to talk about that anymore. Can we go back to Wren Baker coaching search?
Can we go back an hour and a half
really
ago?
quick. So for the
Can we
Wren
just
Baker
talk-
coaching search, women's and whatever upcoming, please God, football, I think something interesting to look at is right now Texas Tech is pretty much, I mean, it looks like they're going to reportedly finalize something with Grant McCasland from North Texas, the same North Texas that Wren Baker was at. Grant McCasland was hired in 2017 by Wren Baker. He, not so long ago, got North Texas into the NCAA tournament. They've been super competitive and looked really good the last couple seasons. This season, I mean, they were like 23-5 at one point. I know they don't play in the toughest conference in Conference USA, but still, I think they ended 29-7 or something. So he's had them rolling. I think they've been at or like right at or above 20 wins for like the last 6 years. So, you know, I just was going to interject with, we keep talking around Wren Baker having to make some coaching hires, some coaching decisions. I think he's more than capable of doing that. I think that's a good example. And, oh, by the way, let's add, if that does go through, I guess to finish that thought, sure, why not? Let's add yet another super competent coach to this Big 12 conference. Why not? We might as well, right? Just have.
What would you do if Huggins replaced Ron Everhart with old gold gloves.
Mrs. Doubtfire?
Yes, slobber knocker.
Turner and Hooch.
I don't know. I doubt he would even entertain that, right? Not hugs. I mean, I doubt Mark Adams would even entertain.
I mean,
that.
they had a warm embrace. They had some sort of weird embrace.
No, but I have to tell you, it would be amazing for our podcast.
It would.
Oh, man.
It'd be content for days.
I mean, I would make T-shirts. I got T-shirts in my head right now. Huggins and Hooch. I mean, they're just. I don't know, because Hooch was the dog, right?
Yeah,
Turner was Tom Hanks, right?
Tom Hanks was Turner, right? Yeah, okay.
I think.
Oh my gosh, was the dog Turner? No, the dog was Hooch.
I would.
Now we don't. I
look it
mean,
up now.
Geez, very important topic here on Got Your Ears On. Turner and Hooch, and what character did Tom Hanks play in the movie, John?
What's worse is if you're the screenplay writer and people are debating whether or not you went with Turner for the human or Hooch for the human. Like,
No, Hooch was the dog. Hooch was
Okay, good.
confirmed
That's what I thought.
dog. I mean, that's what we thought, but Hooch was.
To all of our listeners, this conversation right here is how intriguing and in tune WVU's athletic program is. It's more entertaining for us to talk about Turner and Hooch.
Scoot, do you remember Reginald Vell Johnson being in that movie?
yeah, of course
He
I
was?
do. No, I don't remember him being in that movie.
Yeah.
He probably played a cop because that's what he
That's
does.
all he ever
Right.
plays.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he does.
Craig T. Nelson was also in that movie.
Oh, coach.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe he'll come and coach for WVU
That would be
football.
kind of
Who knows?
sweet.
That would be awesome. I'd take Dauber over
Oh,
what we
yeah,
got
that'd
right
be
now.
actually super funny. That'd be great.
Oh, man. Well, so here's the breakdown of today's podcast, guys. West Virginia basketball.
No bueno.
Who knows? No bueno. No good. West Virginia football.
No bueno.
Wait. West Virginia women's basketball.
No bueno. No good.
No bueno. West Virginia football. It's been no bueno for a while.
No bueno.
West Virginia baseball.
Yo no sé.
Very bueno. Very bueno.
Is this a nod to the
but just-
Sabreton authentic Mexican that we ate that Scoot still like,
Oh.
is this a nod to that? Is that why you're
Sabreton-
using
yeah. Sí.
Sabreton Mexican food.
Es
Es
bueno.
bueno.
Está muy
Es
bueno.
bueno.
It's bueno. Yeah.
How about the Morgantown restaurant scene on a Saturday
no
night?
bueno.
No bueno. No bueno.
No bueno.
Like, come on.
So anyway, it's been a rough night for us, guys. This has been a rough podcast. We should probably wrap it up.
We probably should.
Probably should save our listeners. We'll take a couple of weeks off. We'll come back with the show. I mean, we've got fantasy baseball draft coming.
Right.
We got important things happening.
Yes.
So,
Get your keepers
we
set.
don't have time
Get
for
your
podcasting.
keepers. Keepers are in.
So, listen, we'll be back in a couple of weeks. We'll be talking about WVU football spring practices and if anything at all interesting comes out of that. And we'll talk about, here usually after the Final Four and the national championship game, that's when the portal kind of heats up for Division I basketball. So we'll kind of keep an eye on that and talk about that when we get back. And you can keep following us, I hope, because, I don't know what we're going to talk about if you don't. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Twitter, @Got Your Ears. You can also search for us on Facebook, Got Your Ears On. And we have a website. It's very bueno.
Yes. I
Sí.
can't think of
Sí.
a witty thing in
Está muy bien.
Espanol to say at the moment. So you can find us on gotyourearson.com. We will post the latest show with all the show notes. You can do the clicks and the computer will do the beep boops, and you can go through and read all the stuff and probably stuff we didn't even get to. You can click on the tune in link right on the page and listen to the latest show. You can also click through to the old merch store, get yourself a fanny pack, pullover hoodie, a koozie,
A kiss the cook apron.
all kinds of stuff. A beanie. Scoot likes to rock the beanies.
Yes, toboggan.
You can do all that stuff. So check it out. GotYourEarsOn.com.
Yeah, check it out, guys. So if you've made it to the end of the podcast, congratulations. We appreciate you hanging around through this, whatever you want to call it. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with another show. Scoot, you okay? You gonna make it?
I'll be there.
I'm just worried about you. Worried, a little concerned.
Listen, if the restaurant scene doesn't pick up, we're gonna have big problems.
We're going to have big problems. So we'll be back next time with Restaurants of Morgantown and Got Your Ears On. So thanks, everybody, for listening. You've been listening to Got Your Ears On.